hosts, Jared Logan and Joe O'Brien.
Ah, that's good coffee. Woo, that's good coffee. Holy shit. Oh, it's just hitting my spinal cord now. Ah! Woo! Woo! Did you have your coffee this morning, Joe?
I am not a coffee drinker. I don't do coffee.
Oh.
I don't do coffee.
Well, you should get into it. It's good for you, and it wakes you up in the morning. You're like my wife. My wife is not into coffee either.
Yeah. There's lots of us out there. There's lots of us non-coffee
You're like
drinkers.
my wife in a lot of ways. You're like my glass cannon radio wife.
I wish I could be as funny and as talented as your wife. I'm trying.
Oh, that's
I'm
nice.
working on it.
That's nice.
You said something that I don't want to let just like slip by. It's not good for you. Stop it.
It's
Coffee
good for
is
you.
not.
It's
good
good.
for you.
It has electrolytes.
It's good for when you have a basketball game. You come off the court. Bam.
That's what I come up the court. Hot coffee, not a cold one. A hot coffee, like pouring down my face, burning my skin. Then run right out there and score a slam dunk. Is what I call them.
Score a slam dunk, man.
Score a slam dunk for 2 points.
You've got the terminology down.
I love b-ball. What can I say?
Speaking of basketball, just today, earlier this morning, I had an engagement at my children's school. They had it's summertime now, so it's like it's getting to the end of the school year.
Sure.
So they had the school Olympics today, which is basically when I was in school, we called it field day. Or flag day, or no, not flag day, field day. And it was like you'd go out and play outdoor games all day. And so I volunteered this year because I was like, they were like, could you do between 8:30 a.m. and 11:30 a.m.? And I was like, I could be back in time for Glass Cat Radio. So I volunteered and they put me on basketball. And so I was like running through the kids, like each one gets 3 shots. If you get it in, you get a point. And the teams are all countries, like the Olympics, and they're made of a mix of 1st to 5th graders. So it was super cute and super fun. And, yeah, it was a good time. So lots of basketball for me this morning.
Was any like so there was like a little kids who were like Russia?
Yes. Well, no, I don't think anybody. No, there was no Russia.
Oh,
there are a ton of other countries though. There's France, Spain, Italy, Germany, Scotland, Ireland. Yeah. There was no United States either.
I was the Soviet Union in my mock UN in middle school.
Yeah.
And I ended up nuking the 7th grade class.
Well, they must have pushed you too far.
It was DEFCON 5, man. What was I supposed to do?
You had no choice. They left you with no choice.
Yeah. Well, here we are. This is Glass Cannon Radio. If you've never been here, I'm surprised. If you've never listened, at this point, I am a little surprised. But basically, we're going to talk about the things that you care about, things in the tabletop RPG and nerd sphere. We're going to get into a bunch of great topics today. Today, we're going to start it off with 3 questions for me about nerd-related topics. Then we are going to get into a bracket, y'all. We're going to do some bracketology. I'm not even going to tell them what the bracket is yet. Then it's time to talk about an incredible new role-playing game that I had a lot of fun playing. It's called Age of Vikings. It's going to be
we
from
have a special
Chaosium.
guest for that one. Skid is going to join us to talk a little Age of Vikings with us. Yep.
Right. Skid's done more Age of Vikings than I have. And then we are going to have a little history lesson, a little nerd history about Vikings. And we'll top it all off with announcing the book for book club.
The next book.
Everyone pay close attention. I can't tell you how much it tickles. Actually, don't pay close attention. And don't tell anyone who it is, what the book is, because it tickles me to no end that constantly on the Discord there are people going, "What's a new book?" with like 3 question marks. Have they announced the book? Where's the book?
Well, today's the day. I hope you're tuning in. I hope you're listening. Today's the day.
Don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone. I want to see I'm going to start keeping score. How many people can we get to post to the Discord to sit down at their computer to type it in? Where's the book? And then hit the enter. I want to find out how many people we can get. All right. Well, let's get right into it. I am fully. My body is ready. Oh, if you're ready, we want to hear from you. That's the big point of this show.
Yes.
So get on our Discord if you're a subscriber. Go to the Glass Cannon Radio stage. You can raise your hand. We will put you on the show to talk to us. If you're not already a subscriber, you can do it in like 2 minutes.
15 seconds? Oh, yeah.
15 seconds.
Maybe 2 minutes max. But yeah, go to jointhenaish.com. Use the code GCN30 for 30-day free trial. Come in, join, hang out, get on the show today, and maybe you can have your own response to these 3 questions. We're starting off with 3 questions today. I want to start off with 3 questions because I want to put some topics out there. Boom. And then anytime throughout the show, you're welcome to call in and talk about them, even when we're in other segments. Oh. That's great. We're going to keep these conversations going all day. If you have a thought or an opinion on any of these things or any of Jared's stupid answers, you can call in and weigh in and have your voice heard. Okay.
My answers are going to be canon.
First question for 3 questions. My concern, I slight concern, which is that you led this segment off saying that it was going to be nerdy topics, nerdy questions. My first one isn't.
Not?
No, this is more general. The other 2 we'll get into it. But first question. This question is really going to culminate in me just asking, is this okay? Is this okay? But it's going to have a series of introductions, including some visual aids. So here we go. These are 3 books my son brought home from the school library yesterday. These are first grade scholastic reading books, 1st to 2nd grade chapter books for them to start learning to read a little bit better on their own. Books that aren't just pictures, right? I don't know if have you ever heard of the I Survived series of children's books? Have you ever heard of these? Okay. There's a book series called I Survived about famous, like disasters and stuff like that. So, for example, you have, he brought home, I Survived the Destruction of Pompeii.
Oh,
AD
I have
79.
seen these. Seen these. Okay.
I Survived the Destruction of Pompeii, AD 79. Right? You get a little history, but you get it in a fiction, historical fiction, first-hand action from a kid, from the perspective of a kid. Then we have this one is I didn't know that this was a thing, but I Survived the Shark Attacks of 1916.
Wow.
Apparently there was a rage of shark attacks in 1916. And here's what I want to know if this is okay. He handed me this one. And I did a double
9/11. I'm calling it now. I survived 9/11.
I survived the attacks of September 11th, 2001. Is this okay? Is the first question.
Is it okay? My answer to you is it's absolutely okay. I think that kids learning about 9/11 is a great thing if you can do it in a way that is accessible to a kid. We've had movies about 9/11. I don't know why we can't have a youth novel about 9/11. And I just want to say I'm fully in support of all of these books, which were only kind of, I might have spotted them one time in a bookstore. I'm fully in support of all these books because they seem like they're not babying kids. It's like these are intense, scary topics, but we're saying, hey, you can handle this. You know what I mean? You can take this on. So I think bravo to whoever wrote them.
11-year-old Lucas, who's walking on the streets of Manhattan, has never seen a plane flying so low. 8:46 a.m., page 3. Pull up, Lucas wanted to shout. Go higher. And now his heart stopped as he saw what was in the plane's path. The Twin Towers of the World Trade Center. The plane sped up. No! With one last ferocious roar, the jet plunged into the side of the towers. Page 3. It sounds like I'm not going to let him read it. I just want to get your opinion. I'm curious what other people think about this. I agree teaching history is extremely important, even very dark and dangerous history, and doing it in a smart way for kids.
Most history is dark and dangerous.
Absolutely. This one jumped out at me as too soon. Now, that's because we're of a different age. They don't have that feeling about this event. Why would they? And so, it's McD says that's the new book for book club. we announced it earlier. I survived.
That's it. I survived
September
9/11.
11th. Oh,
look,
man.
Too soon is an interesting thing because Too soon to me feels arbitrary from the perspective of people living in our time right now. I mean, the people that suffered in the Black Plague really suffered. Children died. Families were destroyed. People saw everyone they ever knew die. That's serious. We need to have empathy for people in 1348 the same way that we have empathy for people in 2001. So if something is written with empathy and with sensitivity to the issue, then I'm cool with it. There could be an argument made that fictionalizing the 9/11 events is trivializing it or not showing the proper sensitivity. I say, to me, I weigh teaching kids versus being super sensitive about it, and I would prefer to make sure kids learn and have an awareness of history. So that's where I land on that. But I see someone making the argument this is insensitive. I see that. But then I think if you make that argument, then I think you need to make that argument about the Black Plague, about Pompeii, about the victims of the Golden Horde. Like, I think you need to have that sensitivity to everything, not just recent events.
Understood. I said to me it feels too soon. Steno and Spitfire and chat say it's been 24 years! !
That is true.
The last thing I'll say before I move on to my second, much less dark question is I remember reading it. I can't remember if I was reading it or if it was part of a documentary, but there was an I can't remember where this thought came from, but there was an interesting take on how you approach a documentary for how different it is. This was 20 years ago, 20 years ago, how different it was approaching a documentary that you're going to make for television on World War I or World War II even now, 20 years ago, than it was to make a Vietnam documentary. I know what it was. I'm sorry. It was Dan Carlin. History podcast. Hardcore history. He did a segment where he explained how much different it is when you're about to launch into a deep history dive about something that people who lived through it are still alive. That's a whole different thing that you're approaching. And anyway, that's what it made me think of. So, all right, question number 2. And by the way, call in, raise your hand. I already see some hand raised. We're going to bring you up. You can talk about any of this.
I'm laughing at the kid going, I keep thinking, pull up.
Yeah. It's oh my gosh. All right. So question number 2. Is Deadpool awesome?
Okay. So what a great question. Okay. So Deadpool is awesome.
Okay.
But his fans make him suck.
Well, I guess you could say that about a lot of different
You IP. Absolutely can. The Dave Matthews Band is awesome, but we don't really love their fans. Deadpool got co-opted by a bunch of people who I would call their sense of humor Cards Against Humanity.
Yeah.
And that's too bad. And just if you care, I like the first 2 Deadpool movies, and I thought Deadpool and Wolverine was not a movie. It was a series of Easter eggs and cameos, and I found it kind of to be a nothing movie. But
just focus on Deadpool. Deadpool is a character, series, comic books, anything. You think Deadpool's awesome?
Deadpool's cool. I don't know. Deadpool to me, especially in the comics from the 90s when they first started making him funny, those comics are just so brilliant and were a really different flavor. Now Deadpool has 5 titles every time you look at the comic book store that are going at the same time. I think he's suffered from a little bit of what I call the Harley Quinn bloat, where it's this character isn't that great. This character doesn't need 5 comics at once. But yeah, certainly any character can be cool in the right hands, but hardcore fans of Deadpool kind of suck, and then there's too much Deadpool. He's kind of overstayed his welcome.
Okay. Last question.
Yeah.
Should a GM ever fudge die rolls?
Yeah, so Seth Skorkowski, my good buddy, an incredible YouTuber, has an incredible video about this. And
oh, really? I haven't seen this.
Until I saw Seth's video. By the way, you might see Seth on this show pretty soon. So until I saw Seth's video, I would have said never. And I'll paraphrasing Seth here, but I encourage people to go and watch this video. I think it is about fudging die rolls. So just Google fudge die rolls, Seth Skorkowski. He says sometimes it's okay, and he gives a very specific example. It's like when you want it to be more entertaining for the players is when you should do it. So not to beat them, but when you need to make it more entertaining. And he doesn't mean like all the time to make it entertaining all the time, but like in a moment where you have the wherewithal to go, oh, this is going to be a huge disappointment for the players unless I fudge the roll here a little bit. That's, yeah. So he has an example where the player goes into the dungeon, the player character goes into the dungeon, and he rolls for the bad guy that's in the dungeon, the Black Knight or whatever, and immediately gets a crit that would instantly kill the player. And he's like, that's not going to be fun. This is like the boss battle. The player just walked in. So he fudges that first die roll, but then he lets the rest of the die rolls go the way they are, the way they go. And the player ultimately loses the fight, but the player isn't wiped out in the first moment like the player wasn't even there.
Mm-hmm.
And so then, all the other players are like, holy shit, you went 9 rounds with that guy. That was awesome, And it was all because he just fudged one roll. So I believe, I agree with Seth that like if you are on top of it enough to go, oh, this is going to really suck if this roll is going to really suck for the players, then fudge it, but only when it's in that specific instance.
Mm-hmm.
And never, ever tell anyone that you've fudged a roll later. You got to keep the veil.
It's the beauty of the GM screen. The beauty of
that's the beauty of the GM screen. Don't go later and go, I actually fudged that roll so you could fight longer.
Oh, God. That'd be a hard.
Well, I'm even of the opinion, you'll run a mystery scenario and then people won't figure out everything. And then they'll be like, what was happening there? What was going on? What was happening in that room? And I'm always like, I'm not going to tell you. Like, I want the game to be experienced the way it was experienced. I'm not going to sit here now and give you the backstory after the fact. And I've been in so many games where after the scenario is over and everybody's like picking up their stuff to go home, the GM's like, well, actually what you didn't know was that guy was a spy for the other team. And I'm like, I don't want to know all this. I want my experience to be my experience.
Okay, that's fair. Makes sense. I've got, my thoughts on these things across the board. I don't really need to weigh in on it right now.
Well, I want to know, what do you think it's okay to fudge a die roll?
Yeah. I think it's okay. And it's funny, I've never seen that video, and that is precisely what I would say. I mean, to the letter. It's like, first of all, it is so, the danger here is like, I can say it is very few and far between. Some of you have to use very few and far between. But the reality is also, if you use it at all, you lose credibility for all roles forever, right? So it's
true.
That is a tricky line to cross or not cross. But I'll just say I come from the school of the GM's whole responsibility is to be another player at the table that's playing a game with their friends and is supposed to facilitate fun. And fun is not always winning everything.
Right.
But fun can clearly be in the sights of a gun. And fun can get destroyed by a die roll and make everyone miserable and really grind things down to such a crawl that nobody even wants to play. In those kind of dangerous situations, that GM's power to do that, I feel like, is a power that should be wielded and used with wisdom, with wisdom.
It takes experience and practice, and sometimes I'll let a die roll, I won't fudge it, and I'll let a die roll just ruin the fun. It's happened, and then I have to like walk it back or, You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I like suddenly realized, oh, I've ruined this game. Well, this die roll has ruined this game, and I've let it happen. And I have to kind of walk it back or retcon something, or even go, you know what, you can roll again. I mean, honestly, I've even done that before. When the more elegant thing to have done would have been to just fudge the die roll and not say anything about it. You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It happens. Not every game. Not 1 out of 9, 1 out of 10, but it happens.
Let's take a couple calls before we move to the next segment, just because there's a lot of topics we just threw out for people to weigh in on, and I'm curious what people want to talk about. Let's bring up Travis. Travis has been on the show before. Travis, welcome back. Join us.
What's up, guys?
How's it going,
hey, what's
buddy?
up,
How
man?
are you?
It is going well, and I have Ender with me because he has read a lot of those I Survived books. So,
oh, cool.
You want the input of another 11-year-old?
Yes, please.
Which one do you want to hear about first?
Well, you don't need to give them a synopsis. Just tell them what you thought of the books. Do you like them?
Oh, no, yeah, I really liked them. They had a decent amount of history. It also showed a fictional story of someone, I think. But some of the stories have like a family involvement during a point in history.
Mm-hmm.
And it focuses on that story, and it has a bit of the history in there, and that's why I kind of liked it, because it
Okay. Was it ever scary? Was it ever Was it ever scary? Was it ever too scary?
Oh no! I'd never been scared.
Okay, good. That's good to know. That's good to know.
And then I'll just hit quick on the other questions. The Deadpool question was it if Deadpool was oversaturated?
No. Is Deadpool awesome? That's the only question. Don't write another question,
But
Travis.
my answer was that he's oversaturated.
Yes. I was going off of what Jared's response was, and I kind of fall on the same lines with Jared. He's awesome when done right. Rick Remender, X-Force books.
Yes, I love
fantastic.
those. The Remender X-Force was awesome.
Yeah, and then the fudging on the dice rolls, I agree. Sometimes it's necessary, especially if the players aren't getting where they want to go or don't realize what they're not doing. And I would never tell them. Like, if I help them out, I'm not going to punish them, but I usually will give them a little headway, because most of my players will get stuck and not even realize that they're standing in mud.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Great.
Yeah.
Travis, thank you for the call. That was awesome.
Thank you, Travis.
Great to have an 11-year-old actually
Good to
weigh
hear
in.
from your friend.
Yeah.
I'm assuming son, but I don't know.
Yeah. You don't want to jump to any assumptions.
Yeah.
One comment from Faneless Finnerly in Twitch chat is, and I agree with this too, and this is one of the things I love about running Delta Green. Ideally, if you're not happy with any possible outcome on a die roll, you shouldn't be rolling a die. But in a series of unlikely complications a series of unlikely rolls compile into a problem, and you can't get off the die rolling train, fudge. So yeah, I agree with that. I think that there are times when GMs call for too many rolls. You don't really need to. You can just move on without a roll.
We should do a whole segment on when to roll, because I kind of like rolling a lot, and every GM section of every TTRPG goes, don't roll too much. Yeah. Only roll when it's absolutely necessary. And it's like, for some reason, I just love a roll to see if you, I don't know, make a good sandwich or whatever the PCs are doing.
Well, those are rolls where you don't care that much about the outcome, and it's just fun.
Right.
And you use a strategy that you use that I appreciate and I really like a lot is you use a lot of die rolls, like luck rolls, to determine things that are your choice to make. Like how many guards are in the room, or how many people believe you, or what, just be like, you know what, let me just roll a die and see, is this, item at the shop? You could just say yes or no. A lot of times you say, let me roll a die. And I like that. That's great. As long as, cool. You go with whatever the outcome is. Right? If you say, is so-and-so is this item in the shop? And you say, let me roll a die and see. And then fudge the die? Like, why'd you call for the die roll? That's an extreme example.
I may have done that. I've done just about every dumb thing you can do on a tabletop game.
Let's get another caller. Let's get
another
Philonis. Let's get Philonis up here. Did you have a thought on Deadpool fudging rolls or the September 11th attacks?
We're talking 9/11 here on Glass Cannon Radio today. What did you think of it, pro or con?
I think Phalonis stepped away for a moment, so let's get Rodith up here. Rodith, if you're ready to rock, hop up and join us.
Well, I'm always ready to rock, especially
there he is.
Hell yeah, dude. So
the on that fudging thing is one of those things. I did it a lot more when I was a younger, because I always kind of called for the role, and I've gotten to the point now where I'm a little more comfortable, and also it's harder to do on online, which is most of what I play now. Is
well, because you do public roles.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love online, but you roll in your tray at home because I don't like it all to be completely transparent all the time.
Yeah, and one of the things I was thinking about this from was it last week? You guys had the player comment, what makes a great player?
Yeah.
And one of the things that wasn't touched on was accepting the story-changing role.
Yeah.
And rolling with that. And that's one of the things that I feel like I can do now with more confidence than I used to be able to.
Wait, accepting the story, say again, I'm sorry, Rodith.
Yeah, accepting the way the story changed based on a role.
Oh, right.
The random event that changes the story. And, especially for players in games like Pendragon, where you're rolling on traits and that kind of thing, it can be really cool because it sends players in directions they don't normally follow.
Yeah.
Everybody as a player gets a reputation for being a certain way. Game Master's the same thing. So if you want that story to go in a more random way, then not fudging can be also just as useful. But I totally see.
No, I agree with you. Not fudging is awesome, and that's the only thing role playing games have over video games or watching a TV show is that it can go a random direction, right?
Right. And the really gifted players will roll with it. They'll lean into it and deliver some amazing stuff.
Yeah,
that you weren't expecting and that's what keeps me coming back is, I storytell for a living. So, it keeps me coming back when the player totally surprises me with their cool action.
Well said, Rodith. Well said. Yeah, I think I agree. Early on, I would be tempted to fudge more to direct story in a way I thought was entertaining and cool. And that is a mistake. That is a mistake that I've learned from over the years because sometimes a die roll that I'm like, oh, I don't like the way this story is going. It's like, that's not where you fudge die rolls. It's, for me, and it happens so rarely. It's when the result is so boring or, where it nullifies just like anything interesting happening. We should have Phalonis now. Phalonis, are you here? If you want to hop on.
Hey, how's it going? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah,
great.
We can.
So, was it one question or three? I didn't catch that quite because I got like kind of a joke one and then just a serious one.
Phalonis, were you watching the show earlier or did you just call in?
No, I was kind of on.
No, it's okay, Phalonis. Let's go through the show so far.
So you're bringing questions to us? Is that what you think?
Oh, or your question? Answering your question.
Yeah, we got you on the phone, and your question is, "What just happened?"
There we go. That's the best question, right?
Phalonis, do you have an opinion on?
I kind of want to know what's one of the questions.
Yeah, name one of the questions we just asked.
No. I want him to ask his question.
I know all your questions.
What's the question you have?
Oh, I was just gonna say a joke one. Before all this stuff came out, if you were invited to a Diddy party, would you have went? And then the real question though was, what age do you think it's like appropriate and all that to start getting a kid into role playing and stuff? Because I got a 5-year-old daughter.
Okay, I have a 6-year-old daughter.
Nice.
So would I have gone to a Diddy party? No, I would never have been invited.
It is moot.
Yeah, and also I don't party that hard. So no, I would not have been anywhere near that. And then The question, when to get kids into role-playing games, I think it's different for every kid. And my 6-year-old, I don't think is ready for TTRPGs, but we're playing Pokemon card game now and we're ignoring some rules sometimes. We're playing Pokemon card games.
So my kids are 6 and 8, and I started them on the Pathfinder beginner box, and they're pretty. I mean, the 8-year-old, if I really sat her down and made her focus, and like she would get into it and she would play it somewhat by the rules. With the two of them together, they could not play it by the rules, which I was totally fine with. And we just did we rolled a D20, and however high the number was the result of their action, right? Like it was, and they would be excited about seeing a 15 or a 16 or a 20, and they would know a 2, a 3, or a 5 was not as good of a result. And we played like that, and they had a blast, and they keep asking me to play it, to continue that story. So the answer, like Jared said, is like it's different for every kid. You got to feel out like what they're into, but yeah, trying to get them to like, well, that's a 2-action spell, and that's just not going to fly. I feel like even at 8 years old,
ins and outs of it.
Yeah, you got to kind of
go by their interest.
My daughter will watch me play D&D and stuff, and like she's always like asking, like I want to watch you sit on your lap and like while I'm playing on the laptop, and loves listening to the voices and everything like that.
Cool.
That's cool.
Well, great question. You don't get to respond to anything else. Rodith wrote in real quick and said on Discord that 10, Rodith feels is the magic number for kids
10
playing.
Is a great age for it.
And he said, for no other reason than the violence, which, that is one reason. Because I was playing with them when they were even a little younger. We were playing No Thank You Evil. I don't know if you've ever played that. That's like a Monty Cook Games RPG for kids, and they loved that. It was great, but like there aren't a lot of adventures for it, and I'm not very good at homebrewing this stuff. But super simplified mechanics, and it was all fairy tale kind of stuff. And so they fought things, but you would fight like a piece of cinnamon toast that like came to life or something. So it was very. It wasn't dark in any way.
Yeah.
The quote unquote violence. Let's take one more call on our 3 questions. By the way, you can call all through the show about the 3 questions, but I do want to get to bracketology. Fez.
Hey, long-time listener, first-time caller.
Buddy, I'm so glad you're finally calling in.
First person who said that when we got him on the line.
You are. It's our pleasure, buddy, to have you. How you doing?
Oh, doing great. So I have an answer for the fudging the rolls. If it's it depends on what type of game you're running. If it's a one-shot, you're at a con, fudge the rolls, make people heroic, make things move along. You don't want dead space. Mm-hmm. But if it's a long campaign that you have, like with your friends every night, kill that person on that coming to the boss and make that a reconciliation plot point that the party has to go through. I mean, I feel like collaborative storytelling from a long-form campaign is very important. And it's not adversarial, but to be honest with like, oh, shit, I just rolled that nat 20. I'm sorry, but, your character is are you okay with that? First check in. And then I think there's some solutions that we can go moving forward. But I think that's where I am with fudging rolls.
Are you suggesting making it a negotiation?
Right.
I mean, you're saying to the player, like, if you don't want this to happen, we can roll this back. Is that an option? Because you're not fudging. You told them the die roll was a crit.
Right. That's where, as a GM in a long form, you're with your friends. I think that transparency, that trust is there to be like, hey, look, if you don't know how that friend is going to take it, then have that conversation, right, with the group. Mm-hmm. And like, this is what it's going to be. If you're not okay with your character dying, there has to be some sort of consequence. Let's figure that out, right?
Yeah.
But if you start fudging that roll in that long form, I feel like the integrity of the game suffers a little bit.
Interesting.
Sure. I'm 100% behind character death. I think that's a great thing. And there, we had one in Blood of the Wild, so I think character death is great. I think telling people character death is on the table when you start the campaign is great. But I also think if you build up a big fight and then in the first round, the monster is going to wipe your guy off of the whole, kill him instantly.
And they don't get to play that encounter.
And they don't get to play that encounter. that would be an example where a little die fudging intervention would be okay.
Yeah. But I like your point, Fez, and thanks for the call, buddy. I like your point about also circumstantially. It's not just the scene. It's not just your player's vibe. It's also, there's a big difference between a long-form campaign with your friends and running a one-shot in Vegas for fans, right? And it's not fan service. It's like, you're there for one night to have some fun. Don't make die choices that are boring and drag things out or make people, not have a good time. But character death, yes, should always be on the table. We'll take more calls on this stuff throughout the show, but let's get started on our bracketology. You guys are going to see how this segment goes. It's going to roll through, but we'll take calls throughout about even the bracketology or about the 3 questions. So hang in there. We're going to take more calls in a second. Jared, do you want to introduce this? Do you want to start it? Explain what's going on here?
So, this is something hopefully we can bring back. Basically, we thought it'd be fun to do a bracket to sort of decide what is the nerdiest hobby. What is the nerdiest form of nerdery that exists? Who is the all-time champion of nerd hobbies? So to that end, we've created a March Madness type bracket, and we're going to discuss and then pick a winner for each matchup, and then we'll have a Final Four, and then we'll have a championship. And we may not get all the way to the championship today, this may continue into a further episode. But without further ado, should we?
Yeah, I'm just going to start it off with the first matchup. Yeah, so we're going to get a graphic up here in a little bit that shows the bracket. But for right now, I'm going to leave that off because I don't want to show you all the things that we have listed here.
Right.
So this is a very arbitrary list. It is randomized, so the quote-unquote seeding, if anybody actually follows March Madness, does not follow that trend, which means you might see some early matchups that could have been late game winners, but they're going to face off early and somebody has to win. But let's just get started with some of the matchups.
It's
basically
random. Yeah,
all these words that I've put on this, we've done 16 hobbies that we've put out, and each one is sort of worded in a way that you could add the word nerd after it, and you would kind of know what we're talking about. So our first matchup today, this is totally randomized. Our first matchup today is war history nerds versus video game nerds. This is the first matchup. What is nerdier is the question. War history nerds or video game nerds? Believe me.
I have an answer already. This one I think is not a tough matchup. It's not a tough decision to make.
Okay. What is your answer?
Video games are so mainstream now. They're so widely popular and accepted. They could hardly be called niche. I would say video games probably fall at the bottom of a nerd spectrum of things. But war history, you're reading big books about the Civil War or World War II. You're playing Axis and Allies. You've got model planes. That's a whole array of dorky things. So I'm going with the war history nerd.
I agree with you. We'll go war history nerds, and we also got to kind of define what these broad categories include, because to me, this also includes war history nerds includes a couple big nerd categories that to me are subcategories of war history nerds. Reenactors.
Reenactors, absolutely.
And war gaming. War gaming Civil War wargaming and World War II wargaming, that kind of stuff. All comes under war history nerds.
Axis and Allies, right?
Axis and Allies, yes.
Yeah. When you go to Gen Con, there are these guys at Gen Con who set up a giant map that's the size of 4 Gen Con tables for Axis and Allies, it's so awesome. And my friend Brian got to play it. It was very cool.
Okay, next matchup. Here we go. Comic book nerds versus board game nerds.
Now, this is a tougher one.
Board game nerds is also distinguished from a separate category, which will be coming later, which is tabletop role-playing game nerds. So RPG nerds, that's a different thing from board game nerds. So board game geeks, to hype the website, versus comic book nerds. Which is nerdier?
Clancy on Twitch says that board games are way nerdier. I'm seeing a lot of. Well, no, I'm seeing
this
board
is
game
right
and
down the
comic
middle.
book.
People are saying board
down
game.
The middle.
People are saying comic book. This might be a situation where we have to get McD in if we differ. But I'm going to make a choice. I've made my choice.
Okay. Wow. I don't know, because both the board game and the comic book nerd has no free storage space in their house at this point.
Exactly.
But the board game nerd arguably has less space. I feel like the board game nerd is really board game people are constantly selling their board games. They're like, yeah, I bought it in 2018. I played it one time.
Comic book nerds do the same thing. They sell collections. They collect. They ship. It's interesting.
Theory, I mean, some of them have gone digital now. Some of them, they will buy the collected editions, the graphic novels, if you will. And I'm way more of a comic book nerd. Oh, this is tough. Okay, I think I have my answer.
Okay, I'm gonna go with comic book nerd. I think is a nerdier hobby overall in general. If you factor in a whole lot of different angles of it, board gaming is nerdy as shit.
Yeah.
But the reality is there's a whole lot of, Monopoly out there, and there's a whole lot of board gaming that, that's just very mainstream, very normal. And yeah, there are comic book movies that are very, very mainstream, but hardcore comic book people that know the runs and the artists and the writers from generations past, and to me that is intense nerdery, and it's to be admired and respected. But I pick comic book. What do you think?
I for the same reason, for the body of lore is so complex and deep in comic books, and the need to master it, because you can't just pick up an issue of Batman. Like, you'll pick up an issue of Batman and you'll be like, what's going on? And it's like, oh, you didn't read the 70s run about Ra's al Ghul? Like, it's like totally like it exists in this weird space where you have to be aware of all this history and this lore. So I would say ultimately it edges out board games just barely. I go comic book.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next matchup. This was one of the random ones that I wanted to fudge die rolls here. I wanted to hand move this one because these two are meeting too early in our 16-team field. The next matchup is collectible card game nerds versus miniatures nerds.
Oh.
Collectible card games, we're talking Magic, Pokemon, collectors, game players, whatever.
Star Wars
Unlimited, Netrunner, right? This whole thing up against miniatures, which to me is collecting, painting, and then I would say gaming with like gaming 40K, with them, sure. Warhammer, that kind of stuff. So miniatures aficionado nerds against collectible card gamers. What do you have an easy choice here?
Two evenly matched teams, Joe.
Two evenly matched teams.
Another great matchup.
Yeah. I was going to remember we had that caller about Magic who said that Magic ruined game stores. Like, right. Like those nerds are horrible. A lot of them are horrible. Yeah. I know plenty of Magic nerds that are great, but I hear a lot of them are horrible. I don't know how many horrible miniature painters seemed pretty what's the word I'm looking for? Harmless to me.
Well,
right? Like
my brother is hardcore into miniatures. He has not played very many games, but he really enjoys collecting them and painting them, and finds the painting to be very soothing. I've done a little bit of miniature painting. It is very soothing.
But it doesn't mean it's not nerdy. You know what I mean?
No, I think it's extremely nerdy as well. It's funny how we're kind of comparing them based on the personality or attitude of the people that do them. Is something nerdier if people are more aggro and toxic?
Well, there's a lot to be discussed
Sometimes
here.
It feels that way.
But remember, whoever wins this category is going to be discussed again. So, like, we don't need to go too deep. Did you have a gut reaction? I had a gut reaction. I feel like
Which one's more expensive? That's hard to determine, too. These are the two most expensive hobbies.
This is a big category right here.
Yeah.
Big category.
I think I know where I would go. I don't quite know why I would go that way, but I think I know where I would go.
Where are you going?
I think I want to go miniatures. I think I got to go miniatures
as well. So they pull it out.
There's just something about because the miniatures, it encompasses the game of CCGs. It encompasses the collecting and paying money of CCGs, but then it adds things like making terrain and painting and doing all these modeling activities, which adds like an extra level of nerdery to it. So I gotta go. I mean,
there's some feeling in chat that I'm seeing here. People sort of using the criteria of how social something is as being the differentiator. Like miniatures painters are more social, so they're less nerdy. I just don't see it that way. I do believe they're more social, but I don't think that to me defines what is and is not nerdy. I don't think something that is nerdy has to be unsocial.
To me, it's not social or not social, and I don't want it to be toxic or not toxic. I think it's more like the specificity and complexity of the tasks
of
involved.
The hobby, yeah. I
mean,
yeah. Like we said, these are two heavyweights. It's a shame they met early in the competition. It's crazy to have CCGs out in the first round of a field of 16, but it's bad luck. You came up against miniatures, and I feel like if I go over somebody's house who I haven't met, right? Like it's a neighborhood sort of, our kids are friends. And I walk into their house and I see that they have like a collection of Magic cards. I'm like, holy shit, you play Magic. Interesting. If I walk into somebody's house and they have a case full of painted Warhammer miniatures, I'm like, this is a geek. Like, this guy is going to be into like everything I'm into, right? Like, so I don't know. I just feel like it's a little more, like you said, the specificity. All right, next matchup.
Awesome.
This one might be a blowout, guys. This one just might be walking away. You don't even have to tune into the game. You already know what's going to happen. This is Star Trek nerds up against theater nerds. Star Trek nerds.
They're the same people, Joe.
I know it's kind of tricky to say. I don't know. Man, it's tough. It's tough. When we talk Star Trek nerds, this is very specific. Obviously, some of these other categories are much more broad, but we're talking about, folks that are into all of the lore, go to the conventions, just sort of know all of the worlds, know all of the ancestries and aliens and their people and their people that can speak Klingon, right? This is this is a respectable nerd level.
Yeah. We're not talking about somebody who likes TNG. We're talking about someone who's seen all of the shows, who has
we're talking
at least
about somebody
one uniform
who has,
in their closet.
Yeah, we're talking about somebody who has like on their coffee table is like the blueprints of every single level of the Enterprise. Like the structural
Remember when they
blueprints.
published the books? They used to have books that had just the schematics for the different ships.
Yes.
Freaking cool, man.
I know. It's freaking amazing. Up
I
against
am a Star
theater
Trek
nerds
nerd.
who are, man, talk about a subculture, talk about an intense clique of people that are obsessively into what they're into, which many people are not interested in. Like a lot of people don't care about it all.
And talk about people who are ready to burst into song, people who are just like kind of always on and a lot when you talk to them. I mean, theater nerdery filled with a bunch of spazzes and dorks, man. I used to be a theater nerd. I guess
too.
I sort of am a little bit still.
Me too.
But I'm more of a Star Trek nerd these days. But that doesn't answer which one is nerdier. Do you know what you think is nerdier?
Yeah, I'm going to go Star Trek nerd is nerdier.
You're going to go Star Trek.
Yeah, I'm going to go Star Trek. Do you want to go up against me on this and take it to a tiebreaker?
You know what? This is so weird, but honestly, I do think in this particular case, I think theater nerdery is nerdier for some reason. Okay. Star Trek seems more accepted now. It's almost like a classic form of nerdery, whereas theater nerdery is just always going to be like, it's just very specific, actually. If you're like really into Broadway, what a weird person you are. Do you know what I mean?
Dude, like I love musicals. Good musicals.
Yeah, me too.
I love them. I sit there with a shit-eating grin on my face the whole time, so happy. But while I'm feeling that way, I'm like, this is the most ridiculous form of entertainment on earth. Like, as I sit there watching it, I'm just like, I can't. How did someone even think of this? This is so crazy. By the way, Mike from Boston just posted in Discord the picture of his Star Trek The Next Generation blueprints book.
Hell yeah, dude.
Hell yeah. So you're going to go theater. That means we got to take it to a tiebreaker. McD, if you want to weigh in here and break the tie between Star Trek nerds versus theater nerds, who advances? This is a closer game than I thought.
I can break this tie.
Go for it.
It's got to be theater nerds, man.
Okay.
Wow. More variety, right? You got Shakespeare, musical, off-Broadway, Broadway, independent, one man.
Yeah.
Like, dude, there's too many.
One man show.
Correct.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, man, there's just too much. And Star Trek's in a lull right now. Let's be real.
Yeah.
All right, good answer. I like it. To me, that's an upset, but that's exciting. That's what March Madness is all about.
Right.
Okay, we have finished half of our first round. We finished half of the first round. Why don't we take a couple callers? Let's see if anybody wants to weigh in on any of these things we've talked about or the three questions. Clancy wants to weigh in. Clancy, what do you got for us? What's up, Clancy? Hey.
I wanted to bring it down and talk about 9/11 some more.
Oh, sure.
Please, by all means.
I do think it's good for kids to have the context of it, and there is a lot of misinformation that they will encounter later in life, so I think it's good.
Joe, in that book, does it say that? Does it say steel beams can't be melted with jet fuel? In that,
I haven't gotten that far. I've only read the first 3 pages.
McD put that in chat. I just had to say.
I mean, that's a good point. Who's writing these?
Yeah.
What are they including in it?
Right. Yeah.
Maybe you should read it before you let the kid do it.
Yeah, I don't know. Did you have anything else on any of the other questions or the madness bracket so far?
Oh man, I'm very upset by the theater kids thing.
What? Man, really? Why? You think Star Trek is nerdier?
Way nerdier. They know like dimensions of the ships and I went to the Star Trek experience with my boss in Vegas once, and I just drove him crazy asking when we were going to see the Millennium Falcon. Because I'm mean.
That's it.
I almost
when
got fired.
When I would play StarCraft against people online, I would always make my name Jar Jar Binks, and I would keep going. Is some people gonna die? And
that's what you
amazing.
Gotta do.
That's amazing, Clancy. Well, thank you. Thanks for calling in. Always a pleasure to hear from you. And hang in there for the Millennium Falcon. Something tells me they might be mentioned soon in our I think we got some Star Wars coming up in a second. Coming up on a matchup. Let's get Ultimate Frisbee up here, who posted their blueprints. Mike from Boston, dude, are you upset by this theater victory here?
Yeah, I'm pretty upset. You guys have rigged this bracket. It's really unfortunate to see.
Wow.
What do you mean?
Wow.
Hot take.
How's it rigged?
We're just trying to pass through the theater nerds.
Yeah, it just seems like Jared and McD had a set outcome, and they've achieved that goal. And poor Joe was left out of the loop.
I mean, McD really convinced me by saying one-man show.
One-man show. That is something else. Go to see a one-man show.
Broadway, Shakespeare. Look, think about it this way. If you met someone and they had Spock ears on, you'd be like, wow, that is a nerd. But if you met someone and they just launched into a song from Rent, you'd be like, oh my God, the levels of nerdery right now are making me collapse.
Oh, man. Well said. Good. I think it's a good argument. I mean, this is bold. Mike from Boston is putting the integrity of the show on question here.
Yeah.
Rigged. We rigged our first bracket. Mike, do you have anything else? Anything on the three questions?
The die roll on that one.
Yeah, 3 questions. I was going to get to fudging in a second, but I think Deadpool fans are confused sometimes with Ryan Reynolds fans these days.
That's an interesting take.
And he's very popular, you know.
Wait, so who's insufferable, Deadpool or Ryan Reynolds?
Yes.
Okay.
But no, for Fudging Rolls, I had a quick story about this. I launched a Curse of Strahd campaign during the pandemic. And you run through, and it's the house full of spirits. And I had this player who put in like 5 pages of backstory into this character and got slammed by a specter for max damage. They only have 10 hit points at first level. He rolled a d10 and rolled a 10. If that particular monster brings you to 0, the character just dies.
Right.
Like that's it. There's no death throw. That they just suck the soul out and he's done. And it's like I think the second encounter of the campaign.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not fun for anybody.
Right. Yeah. But if you listened, I'm sorry, I don't know if you said it was a guy, but if your player listened to how to be a great role player last week, they would know, don't write 5 pages of backstory.
Yeah,
before you start a campaign. That's your first mistake.
So,
in fact, that character deserved to die.
I should have fudged. I let the roll happen, and I'm like, all right, sorry, you're dead. And we ended up having to come back and allow one of the other players to quote unquote resurrect the character just so we could move forward with the night.
Okay.
Because an adult had a temper tantrum?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
But my character in the fictional universe.
Thank you for the story, Mike. Good. Yeah, you got to, you know your players' moods. You got to watch them. You got to pay attention and take the temperature.
Would have been a good opportunity to fudge, and I miss them all the time. Take them occasionally.
Let's continue our bracket. We'll get to more of you guys in a second. Here we go. The next half of our first round continues with the matchup between film nerds versus fantasy sports nerds. Film nerd. What is more nerdish? Being super into filmmakers from many generations, many countries, many styles.
We're talking Tarantino level. Yeah. You've memorized all the Italian spaghetti Western directors, or maybe you've seen all the films of Ernst Lubitsch, I kind of fall into this a little bit. I'm a big classic films guy. I'm big into film history. I don't care about fantasy sports at all, but I have heard people talk about it for 5 minutes, and I wanted to kill myself.
I love fantasy sports. I'm not a film nerd. I just love movies, but I don't know anything about the deep culture of movies, of film. And I think that, man, fantasy sports does not get enough credit for how nerdy it is. Like, it's almost considered like cool or something, which couldn't be further from the truth, just because a lot of its population is made up of like jock, quote unquote, types, does not make it less nerdy. One of the most nerdy aspects of it is what you just said. When fantasy players, if they don't know each other, like meet in a social situation, they will ruin a table. Like a hang, just by talking about fantasy, because you can talk about it forever. You can go down these rabbit holes, and I love doing it, but I have to be told sometimes, like, stop talking about fantasy football to this person. We have to talk about something else now. And I'm just like, oh, okay, sorry. Like, back to reality. I left the planet Earth socially for so long. So yeah, it's pretty damn nerdy. Film nerds I find to be like, generally speaking, kind of, I feel like it has a reputation of being like obnoxious and elitist. You know what I mean?
It is. It can be, absolutely.
If you like a popcorn blockbuster, they're like, oh, so you don't understand film. You know what I mean? It's just like, hey, I had a good time. It's entertaining. What are we talking about here? That sort of like I'm better than you vibe exists throughout a lot of film nerdery, I feel like.
That's absolutely right. And we're holding on to that very tightly. We are better than you because we have seen some Godard. We feel very strongly that the rest of you peons and peasants don't quite get the magic of cinema. I have an Ingmar Bergman box set. That said,
what's your choice?
All of that said, I will go fantasy sports.
I'm also going fantasy sports as a nerdier hobby in general.
Yeah, it's just more
intolerable to be around.
They're
if you're
both
not
obnoxious. They're both so obnoxious, but fantasy sports is more obnoxious.
Okay, got a big matchup next. This is going to be the primetime game. You got to tune into this one. No one knows, I feel like, where this one's going to go. Two heavyweights. We have anime nerds up against LARPing nerds.
Wow, yeah.
Anime versus LARPing. Had a great Glass Cannon Radio on LARPing a few back where I couldn't make it. I listened to it after the fact with Mary Lou, and I was fascinated with her detail of how it all works. But the whole time I was like, I don't think I could ever do this. Like, it sounds so intimidatingly nerdy, like a hobby that is so but you know what else is for me? Anime. To even begin to get into the depths of anime. It's almost like it crosses over into that comic book nerdery. There's so much that's so deep. There's so many little hidden nuggets that all these specific anime nerds know about. Tough one. What are your initial thoughts on this matchup?
Anime has an incredibly deep body of lore. It really is very, very deep, but it also has some mainstream qualities. I think people have universally accepted Miyazaki, for example. Spirited Away and such. Mm-hmm. And anime is really, you're just talking about. I've had people say to me, "I don't like anime," and I'm like, all anime is animation from Japan. It's so incredible. There are so many incredibly different types of it. It's kind of like saying, I don't like action movies. Like, I'm like, okay. I don't know. I guess I get it, but I don't think people realize how broad a thing anime is. To me, LARPing is my pick to win this whole thing.
You're putting it ahead all the way to the championship?
That's my prediction. I think LARPing's gonna take the whole ball of wax, baby, because I can't think of anything that is nerdier than LARPing. Ooh, it incorporates so many nerdy things. It incorporates theater nerdery, RPG nerdery, cosplay nerdery. I mean, it incorporates a bunch of nerderies under its umbrella. So I got to go LARPing here.
Okay. All right. Got to go LARPing. I don't know that I like the early call that it's just going to win the championship outright, but let's see what it comes up against along its path to the finals. Next up, we called it alcohol nerds. And so this is meant to encompass beer nerds, wine nerds, whiskey nerds, bourbon nerds, this whole movement that I feel like has happened over the last 30 or so years, 25 years.
Yeah.
Man, are these nerds up against cosplay nerds. Now, this is tricky. You said LARPing is kind of like that. This to me is its own category. This is
yes,
people,
of course. There are people that cosplay that do not play any kind of role-playing game at all,
or board games. They don't game. They're people that dress up as their iconic fictional heroes. And
I believe there are people that go to Gen Con and San Diego Comic-Con mainly for the cosplay. Like they go just to be around people that are cosplaying, to be in the cosplay contest. I always am blown away by some of the cosplay I see at Gen Con. I'm like, wow, that's really cool. I can't believe someone's able to create that. So much artistry and creativity goes into it. I mean, it's great. Alcohol, more obnoxious.
Yep.
I
don't feel like there's anything obnoxious about cosplay unless there's like tiers of how much you put into it and how obsessed you are with it. But like, you don't get the sense that people that are dressed up at a con look down at you for not dressing up. Like,
right.
You know what I mean? Like, whereas
if anything, they look uncomfortable.
You can be at a backyard barbecue.
Sweating in their Wolverine suit.
You could be at a backyard barbecue and just like, crack a Coors Light and have somebody be like, oh my God, Coors Light. You're like, really? Like, okay. So, are we making unbearableness part of the it sounds like we were getting into that with fantasy sports. We shouldn't.
That's what we did in the last one, but we shouldn't, right?
Yeah, right.
That should not be the only, at least it shouldn't be the only arbiter. Maybe it decided the last match, but it's not going to decide this one.
I do think we have used as a what's the word I'm looking for? We have used as a rubric, like how mainstream something is. Alcohol nerdery is far more mainstream than cosplay.
And I think even though it's kind of obvious, we may be overthinking it here. I think, come on, clearly, cosplay is nerdier than being really into whiskey. I think that's clear.
Okay, I'm with you. I think we could talk ourselves around in a lot of different ways, but cosplay is going to win this one. So we'll just give it to cosplay. And our last matchup in the first round, it's going to be a tough one. This is what was left. Star Wars nerds up against RPG nerds.
Oh, boy.
Star Wars nerds up against RPG nerds. Our final matchup of the first round. Very nerdy hobbies.
I have my answer. I have my answer
too. Yes, I'll say this. My answer is going to be RPGs. And the reason I'm going that way is because Star Wars has become obviously more mainstream over many, many years. I mean, it's been mainstream for a long time. When I think of it, though, I think of like people that, argue about the speed of a TIE fighter versus a TIE interceptor. Like, we're talking nerds that really get into, we're talking the way Matthew Kabadakaza can list off multiple planets that have never been mentioned in any of the movies that are in the systems because of books he's read, extended universe, stuff like that. These are big nerds. But I think that, and I don't think playing RPGs in and of itself is particularly nerdy, but maybe it is. Maybe I've been drinking the juice too much for too long.
Well, we're very inside the RPG hobby. We're deep inside of it. So we probably can't see ourselves objectively, right? I think Star Wars, I got to go RPGs too. Star Wars has become so mainstream. There's Star Wars water bottles. There's Star Wars shampoo. You don't see a Pathfinder shampoo, man.
Yeah.
It's just, Star Wars is culture now, and RPGs are still a niche. D&D 5e has more awareness now, but that's it, man. When someone says, "Oh, you played," you have to call RPGs D&D just to talk about it, because people are so unaware of what it is or what it entails. So I got to go RPGs.
I'm with you. We'll go RPGs, and that rounds out the first round. So let me see if I could get this. Let me see if I can get this up for everybody to take a quick look at. Pardon me. I'm gonna. Let's see. I want to get this. There we go. Wait. Oh, come on. This is so frustrating.
You can do it, Joe.
I know. It's just like it annoys me. It's not working.
Well, just tell us who won. Just remind us who won and who's won.
Yeah. Round. Okay, so let me see. I'm sorry. 2 seconds here. Was this the? Yes, I know the mistake. Okay. I'm about to have it. Yes, here we go. Got it.
Okay.
And done. There we go.
All right.
And all right, so here we go. I might have to do a little zooming and stuff here, but let's add it to the stage. There we go. We've got our first bracket is complete. As we look through the first round, so going into what we would call the Elite Eight, War History is about to face off against comic book nerds. War History versus comic book. Miniatures against theater nerds. Oh, that could be a very interesting matchup. Fantasy sports versus LARPing. Seems like Jared's already decided on that one. and cosplay versus RPG nerds.
Wow.
Yeah, this is interesting. I feel like maybe we gotta move on and do the Elite Eight on our next show. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a great idea. Yeah, let's do it.
So speaking of our next show, we will not be live on next week. So we're not doing a show next week, the week of June 11th. That week, we're going to be in Vegas for the 10th anniversary of the GCP. We're out there with a retreat, and so we cannot produce a GCR that week. So we'll be off next week, but we're coming back June 18th. Hoping to have a special guest that week. We might have Seth Skorkowski on June 18th. So that's what we're hoping to lock that up. We'll let you guys know. But in the meantime, we will finish and complete this Tiers of Nerdery bracket on our next episode. We'll take the 8 down to 1. It would be great if we could get Seth's take on some of this stuff.
Yeah, Seth will weigh in. Sure,
that would be amazing. All right. That said, let's move on to our next segment here. We've got a special guest for this one. Definitely, I'd love to have you introduce it and bring our guest up whenever you're ready there, Jared.
Okay, absolutely. So recently, the Glass Cannon got an opportunity to do a playthrough, which will be available to you out there in listenerville soon, of the incredible new role-playing game, Age of Vikings. There it is. Look
there
how
it is. Oh, what a gorgeous cover. Gorgeous book.
Yeah. And you can find a video online now of our guest playing it with some friends from Chaosium, and including some players you know. Please welcome Age of Vikings veteran, Skid Maher, everybody. Skid Maher.
Hello.
Yo,
hello.
Good buddy.
Hi.
Hey,
hello.
How's it going?
Hi.
Skid, are you in Discord? I can't find you in Discord.
I am in Discord.
I can't. You're in the room with everybody?
I'm in the room. I just raised my hand.
Oh, thank you for raising your hand. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
I couldn't find you for some reason.
Thank you for raising your hand. That was polite.
Very polite.
Good to see you, buddy.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah,
good to see you, Skid. I want to just say before we get deep in, this game is from Chaosium. It's by a guy named Pedro Ziviani, who did a phenomenal job. I guess he did most or all of the writing. And then there is gorgeous art throughout this book by people named Asi, forgive me for the names, Asi Hikala and Martina Starzuska and many others. But this art, I mean, there's like cool maps. There is, this cover is incredible. Wait, there's just one illustration I gotta show because I think it's so dope. But so this is a gorgeous book. That's one thing to know. The other thing to know, Skid, well, how did you feel about it playing it? Because I've only run it. What did you?
I loved it. It's great. As I did with Pendragon, I purchased a Great Courses course on Vikings, so that I could get deep into some historical knowledge.
So awesome.
Dove in before that. So I was ready to go. Like, I was so primed. I was really excited about it. And the system does not disappoint. Chaosium always brings it. Yeah. And yeah, the art is incredible. I don't think if anyone out there is from Chaosium, I would love a hard copy of the book as well.
Yeah. I mean, it really is just like a nice book to have. And this is the whole game, so it's not a giant, like, heavy tome, but it covers so much. So you get all the rules, but you also get all the background you need to play a campaign in 10th century Iceland. So there are chapters on ships and seafaring. There are chapters on law and government, chapters on religion, and there is a complete gazetteer of 10th century Iceland. So you get all of that historical background, and then the rules are really fun and interesting too. I mean, what did you think of the rules, Skid? Like how combat worked? You were in a combat in my game.
Yeah, I think that the combat system is great. It is a combination because actually it's funny because right now I'm heavy in prep for Top Secret, which I'm running in Las Vegas. Huge mistake. I forgot how insanely complicated this game is, especially in combat. But the thing that I do love about it is how detailed it is.
Yeah.
And I feel like Vikings, along with a lot of the Chaosium products, they hit the sweet spot for me between being detailed without being overly complex and easier to run and play. So that was great. Like I really, really got into the combat. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, if you're interested, go ahead.
I just want to interject for a second before you continue on and just make sure everybody knows, if it wasn't made clear, like that you guys playing Age of Vikings is going to premiere on YouTube 1 week from today. So
thank you.
On Wednesday, June 11th, you're going to get to see Wednesday night, June 11th, bookmark at 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific, premiering on YouTube. You're going to see Age of Vikings live play, not live play, but you know what I mean, it's pre-recorded, but with Jared and Skid. Jared, fill us in on the rest of the cast, too, before we start talking about the game.
And we also have Mary Lou, and Paula Deming, and there will be 2 parts. We did 2 parts, so you'll get like 4 hours total of Age of Vikings.
On June 11th and June 18th.
On June 11th and June 18th. And I just used the pre-written adventure in the book, but the pre-written adventure isn't really an adventure so much as a sandbox. It's based around the Icelandic National Assembly, which would happen every year in the 10th century in Iceland, where all these different basic Viking chieftains would meet all in one area of the island to decide legislation and all of the court cases that were brought to them. So that event is sort of a backdrop for a bunch of little different encounters and things that can happen. So it's kind of cool to see an adventure included in a book that's like more of a sandbox than A happens, then B happens, then C happens. I thought that was really cool. The rules that Skid was talking about the difference between complexity and ease of use. You know, if you're familiar with Call of Cthulhu, the big Chaosium game, this adds a little bit more crunch to the combat, but I thought not so much that I felt like I was deep in the woods. Like there's parrying in this. So you can parry every time someone attacks you. And depending on how the parry goes, you damage their weapon or they damage your weapon, and your weapon can break in half. There are hit locations for when you get past the parry.
Love hit locations.
Yes.
Huge fan of hit locations.
Hit locations is awesome, and it ended up having some wild effects in our game. So I just really, really enjoyed how that played out. It wasn't very deadly.
Is the base mechanic, it's a roll under D100 system?
Yes, it's still that. But this game makes a little bit...
Do you have a huge array of skills like Call of Cthulhu?
I wouldn't call it huge, but I'd say that, you know, there's enough to make it interesting. Absolutely.
Okay.
And, you know, because it's
pretty comprehensive given the setting.
Because it's a historical game, some of the skills are quite
So it doesn't
funny.
have like computer hacking or anything like that?
No, sadly, no.
No.
I mean, you could. I guess you could.
There are skills.
I want to play modern Age of Vikings.
You just play a Viking with completely inapplicable modern skills. I think that'd be really fun.
Yeah. Are there any computers here? There are skills like skaldic poetry.
Whoa, that's cool.
You know,
I did some poetry. I did some.
Yeah.
In our game.
Yeah, absolutely. There's all kinds of lore, like myth lore, mineral lore is one of the lores. I mean, there's just like, there's going under the cloak. So the magic system is really interesting. And there's this thing that's real, you know, Viking culture called going under the cloak, where their wise people would like put their cloak over their heads and meditate out in nature. And you can use that in this game if you're a magic user to kind of fortify yourself and get like more points to use for your magic. And the magic system is completely free form. So it really just depends on like how many points and energy and time you want to put into a spell, what you can do. You don't have a list of set spells like in Pathfinder. You can do anything within these certain parameters based on how much effort you put into it. And one of the beginning pre-generated characters can cause an earthquake.
Yeah. Wow.
That's one of the examples of things that she can do.
You can change the weather. You can really like cool kind of powerful things, but sort of also sort of amorphous and open to interpretation. And
and Mary Lou did some interesting stuff. She was the magic user in our game, and she did some very interesting stuff.
Does it have do the builds kind of feel like you got to build kind of like a warrior, or you got to build kind of like a magic user, or can you be like a battle mage kind of class? Like, is that a thing?
No, it's a good question. I think that you could definitely be someone who has both magic and fighting. This isn't as much like class or specialization kind of based character creation. It's more like Call of Cthulhu, where, you can divvy up points where you want them to go. So I think you could definitely do both.
So is spell casting, spell usage a skill? Just
it's
like
a skill,
and
exactly.
like blade usage is a skill?
Yeah. Yes, and there are two different types of magic. We used the Saithkona magic, the Sather in our game, but there's also rune magic where you carve runes into things, and then that has magical effects. So two different magic systems. And when we're talking about magic in this game, this is a very historical game that tries to stick close to the actual history, but the magic is in there because the magic is in the Icelandic sagas. The Icelandic sagas being these great sagas that were written long ago. They were actually written a couple centuries, I think, after, the 10th century. Mm-hmm. But
sorry, let me see that again, Jared.
Yeah, sorry. This is just one. I bought this for $1. But the stories in here are larger than life. They're like myth cycle kind of stories, and they have magic in them. And they also have just really bloody fights and deaths. Which goes along with the magic system for this game.
Is there clan mechanics? Are there like are you part of a clan? Do you have reputation of your clan? Do you have holdings for your clan? Like, is that kind of mechanics in there?
Yes, more or less. I mean, it's I don't know about mechanics, but when you create your character, it's a life path system. And you can go back and decide what your grandfather's life was like.
Oh, cool. Love a good life path system.
And then you get your parents' life, and then you get your life. And even the pre-generated characters, it tells like stuff like how many sheep they have. Wow. And how many cows they have on their farm, So you really do get, and that's all, created quickly with like die roll tables and stuff. But you get a sense of like what their life is for sure.
Did you guys do that as part of the show? Did you do any character creation, or do you just kind of...
We used the pre-generated characters.
Pre-gens and jumped into story? Cool.
Yeah.
Let's take a caller. Let's see if anybody has any questions about it, or if you just want to weigh in on anything we've talked about today, feel free. Sweet Threat, if you want to join us and hop on the show, what's up?
Can you hear me?
We got you.
Yeah.
All right. I really have to talk about fudging. And I'm also very excited about the Age of Vikings game coming out.
Cool.
That sounds super fun.
Let's start with fudging. Go ahead, by all means.
Yeah. For fudging, I think in my heart, fudging is reserved for people you don't believe can bear the like weight of the outcome of the dice. So that should be reserved for children and hormonal teenagers.
Do you mean like 46-year-old hormonal teenagers? Because I hear a lot of stories about those people.
Hey, if those people can't handle it, but I think I have lost friendships because someone just straight out told me after the fact, like you said, Joe, that you should never, I think it was Joe Jarrett, that you should never tell someone when you fudged. But it became obvious to me because we played 5e at the time that he had fudged, because I had run a similar like structure of or a similar set of monsters, so I kind of still remember the stat block, and I just saw him fudge in real time and like add hundreds of hit points to a monster.
And he was adding them to win.
To roll. Yes, and I think the problem with fudging is at its core that it's saying like you can't be trusted to handle this outcome of a die roll, and it's deeply, deeply disrespectful to me. And I'm not accusing anyone currently of having done this, but I've seen prominent creators propose that you should just ignore hit points in a system like Pathfinder or D&D on monsters and just end the encounter when it is dramatically appropriate or when the players don't have fun anymore.
Well, I mean, I gotta tell you, man, I don't really listen. I don't really do that, but
no.
The pressures of an actual play or doing a show, I could see why people would make that decision. But also, that's not... grinding combats that go on for 4 hours are boring.
Absolutely, Jared. But I just want to clarify: these weren't actual play creators. These were just like homebrewers, third-party creators who advocated for people in their home games to just ignore hit points and just end the encounter when it had been dramatically appropriate enough. So if you used a fireball, that would be a high enough resource expenditure for the DM to choose to end the encounter.
Yeah.
Or if he chose not to have fun enough.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I get what you're saying, but I don't totally disagree with that. I don't think that that's terrible. You know, I made a video one time about how to make combat simpler, and it was all about how to get out of the combat, you know, making the enemies retreat, making the enemies surrender, like making the enemies go to like some sort of end game scenario where they activate a big trap or something, but something where you're not grinding down the hit points of something to the very last drop. You know, I haven't really done that on Blood of the Wild at all, but I really see the value in getting to the end of a combat encounter.
But to counterpoint that, if you are, as Sweet Thread is suggesting, really throwing hit points out the window, basically, where every combat you're just kind of feeling it back and forth and choosing the best moment for the monster to go down. Or, you know, the best, I mean, that to me feels like every monster then just becomes defeatable unless you just decide they're not. If you're not holding yourself to some objective standard, you know, that's understood between the players and the GM, I think that's a real dangerous road to go down. Now,
yeah, I see how it's a dangerous road.
Now, I don't disagree, Jared. If you have a 275 point monster and everybody, and it has, don't even get me started on concealment, right? And then you give it concealment, and now everybody is just bored and miserable because they think their characters suck because you roll a 4. Oh, I rolled a natural 3. Now I can't even attempt the attack. All that kind of stuff. If you get to a point where a hit takes that monster to 3 hit points left, there are times I will absolutely be like, and you kill it, right? Like, because you just got to wrap it up. So I do it, but the idea of mechanically removing hit points as a mechanic and just making all of that not matter what the players say they did and just feeling out the right moment, I think that's a bridge too far for me.
And I also
Skid, what do you think? I want to know what's...
Yeah, 1 second, Sweet Thread. We'll come right back to you. Skid, what do you think?
I think, I guess you can kind of split the difference with some of this stuff. I mean, you want to have some kind of meaningful obstacle to success besides whatever your game master is feeling like at the moment. Like, that seems like something to keep everyone honest, keep everybody invested. But yeah, I mean, there's times when if you strictly go by the rules, everyone's going to be miserable and you're going to stop having a good time. And it's like, you have to feel it out. It's like, you know,
it's not an exact science.
It's not. Sure. It's
being
an art.
Being a great game master is knowing that's sort of how to feel it out. Being a good game master is how to feel it out.
Yeah. And by the way, I would sort of support the idea of doing away with hit points completely, but in favor of a damage system that made more sense. I'll support that. I think that by and large, hit point based combat systems are kind of silly, and I would like a more advanced technology to come along. I think we're overdue.
It's very easy to over gamify a system where if you have 104 hit points and you're down to 1 and you act with all of the same proficiencies as you did when you had 104 hit points,
it doesn't make sense.
You can just gamify that system to be like, hit points don't matter. They're an expendable thing that I don't really care that much about. It's tricky. That's why I think, Skid, that's why you like hit locations. This idea that your right arm is out of the fight, that makes story. Those are narrative mechanics that make things feel immersive.
And by the way, an area in which the top secret combat system excels.
Cool. Sweet Threat, what are your thoughts on all that, what we just said?
Yeah, but I agree. When you are down, it's brought down to like 3 hit points. And it sucked for the last 3 rounds of concealment.
Yeah.
Fuck it, kill that creature. Who cares? But when it comes to something like, and again, I also want to say, Skid, I agree, if the hit points don't work for you and for you, General, and the group, but that's something you would discuss with them. You wouldn't just do it behind the screen and just go, no, I'll just
that's admittedly different than what you were talking about. That's a different sort of idea than what you were saying.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
And that's the difficult part I have with this is people like prominent creators, hundreds of thousands of subscriptions on YouTube, putting out videos where they go, 1, never admit to fudging, and 2, fudge when it makes for a better story. Like if you just want something to happen, and I also want to say when we talk about like the Black Knight killing a character in the first attack, that is a very specific set of systems that we care about that with. Because in Mörkborg or Mörkborg, you wouldn't give a fuck if the Dark Knight killed a 3 hit point like wretch in the first round.
Yeah. Admittedly, it is a different style of game. And thank you, Sweet Threat, for the call. There's a lot of good points to discuss. I mean, we could do a whole show on like who has done combat mechanics in very interesting ways and what part of combat you like in chunkier systems and what parts you don't, trying to kind of fine tune that. Combat is very tricky. When you cross over into tactical gameplay versus action gameplay, it's, wow. Let's get another call in. Let's get Squid in. Squid's been waiting for a while. Squid, thanks for your patience. How you doing? Hope you're well. Can you hear us?
I am. Thanks
there we go.
for asking. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, we got you. Yes. We got you. What did you want to weigh in on here? Lots of topics floating out there. What do you think about theater nerds?
Well, I love what I think about theater nerds. I've been married to some, and they are definitely nerds. There's no question about that. But I think that the right call was made on that split. I think on the bracket. What I was curious about is the Venn diagram, right? There's overlaps of a lot of these. Like, I used to do SCA, which is a cross between historical warfare nerds and LARPing, right? So, which counts?
Well, I mean, when you're talking about reenactors, like, is that cosplay? It is. I mean, they get so psyched about putting on, we just had one recently at my park, which is 2-minute drive from my house. I was just taking my daughter down to drill her in softball just to make sure that she's staying up to the stuff of her 8-year-old rec games. And I drove her down to the park and they were just rapping. I had no idea all morning they were doing a Revolutionary War reenactment thing in this park.
Cool.
And these guys looked so dope. I was like, it must be so fun to like, I mean, they had the muskets and like the heavy boots and the heavy coats and tricorn hats and everything. And it just was so like, it was, I love that look. It was like premier cosplay. Like they looked legit.
Oh, Revolutionary War.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was like recreating one of the great Civil War battles that took place in northern New Jersey.
I do want to speak about hardcore nerdy though. If you're coming to Vegas, which I know all the rest of the people on this call are you coming to karaoke Thursday night? Because that is one of my favorite nerdy activities.
Oh, we should have put that on the list.
Oh, is that karaoke nerd is a subset of theater nerd.
Okay, subset of theater nerd.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right.
It's a
Thursday
subclass.
night next week. I want to hear those jams.
Nice. Thank you, Squid. That's great. It really is like, but there, it is. You're right. It's a subset of theater nerds, but we're not talking about folks that enjoy doing karaoke. Like there are karaoke nerds, the people that travel to places to hit their karaoke nights on. You know, and they go with the same people or they see the same people all the time and they're kind of competing against each other. And there's, oh man,
we can come up with infinite teams for the bracket. We could get into people that, take animals and what do you call it? Oh my God, my brain is dead this morning.
What are you talking about?
I don't know where this is going. Cut his mic. Cut his mic.
When you stuff the dead animal.
Taxidermy.
Oh. But it sounded like I was talking about fucking animals.
That's where it sounded like it was going.
We can talk about people who put their penis inside an animal.
Where do they match up?
Or their vagina inside an animal. I don't know.
There is
I can see them in the final four.
We didn't talk about that, like the outdoor, like hunting, fishing nerds. Like people that get way into that hobby. We'll talk about it with everybody all the time. Gun nerds. That's You're right. There's a lot of topics we or a lot of
people
teams.
up and taking their money, nerds. You know what? You know who drives me crazy? Meth nerds. Oh my
They
God,
just love meth. They're always
just so into
seeking it
meth.
out
All they
and
talk
wanting
about
to-
is meth, and I'll suck your dick if you give me meth. It's like. Now that's a nerd.
That's a nerd.
Now that's a friggin' nerd right there.
Shut up, nerd.
Sucking dick for meth is not mainstream.
That is
not mainstream.
That's a niche. That's a niche.
They almost broke through with Breaking Bad. They almost kind of made it cool, but it's still relegated.
Didn't quite get there.
Yeah.
Jared, do you want to move along here to nerd history? Do you want to talk some Viking stuff?
Yeah, so anyway, check out that game and check out our playthrough. When is that happening again, Joe?
So next week, Wednesday, June 11th, there will be no Glass Cannon Radio. We're off because we're in Vegas, but we pre-recorded the first part of 2 parts of Age of Vikings playthrough. Jared running Skid, Paula, and Mary Lou through this new Chaosium title, Age of Vikings. It's premiering on YouTube Wednesday, June 11th, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. You can catch it there, watch it live with the nation, and you can chat it out, talk about it. I'm really excited for this one. You guys were raving about it, and can't wait to see it. And then the second part happens 1 week later, Wednesday, June 18th, again, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific on YouTube. Check it out.
Now, we're going to talk a little bit about Vikings, do a little nerd history with some incredible Viking facts, and I'm glad Skid is here because he took the great courses on Vikings, and he probably has even more background than I have from, the little bit of research I've done. So, Joe, where were the Vikings from? Do you know where they were from?
I always presume they were from, like, Scandinavia. Denmark,
right,
Finland, Norway, Sweden sort of territory.
That's right. That's exactly right. And they sailed and they raided all over the world. And sometimes people don't know when this happened. This was the 8th to the 11th centuries. So the 700s, like 750, they started.
I think Lindisfarne is like the first.
And that's 793. So Lindisfarne is like the big one where people they were really going strong by that time. We'll talk about Lindisfarne in a minute. So they traveled very far from their homelands, these Norse raiders. Of course, they visited England, but you probably remember that they also visited North America. There's evidence of them in Newfoundland. They went to Morocco and North Africa. There's evidence that they were hanging out in Morocco quite a bit.
Wow, I didn't realize that. That's freaking awesome.
Kiev in Ukraine. There's evidence of Vikings in Kiev. And then
they established that kingdom, that whole...
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Wait,
was them.
would the Vikings in Kiev have sailed through like the Mediterranean, or is this like overland they went to Kiev?
They would have sailed across the Baltic and...
Sailed across the Baltic.
Down the...
Yeah. And they even became, some of them even became part of the Byzantine Empire as Varangians, right? The Varangian Guard.
Mm-hmm.
So they went and they joined the armies of the Byzantine Empire. And there's even evidence that they were in Iran at one point.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, not a lot of cultures were so far traveled in the like 700s to, 1000s. So pretty cool. They were not just one group. So it wasn't, a united nation. They were like a large number of Scandinavian tribes, and they fought against each other just as much as they raided foreign lands. So that's something to know as well. They weren't one united front. In fact, in our Age of Vikings game, we get into how really the political unit of the Viking culture is the Gothi, or the chieftain, and then his following around him. So they were pastoral, so they had farms, and then they would all kind of pay homage and be led by a chieftain. And that was the political unit. It wasn't across the whole island of Iceland. They had all these different little communities that came together in a very democratic way, which is surprising. Okay, Vikings had long ships, right? And they had like a really shallow hull. You remember what those long ships look like? And that was not only because it was really fast to have a ship built like that, but not only was it really fast, the hulls were so shallow that they could handle the ocean, but they could also handle a river that wasn't very deep at all. So they could take their ships far inland and strike against people way inland.
That was their biggest technological advantage was the long ship. The fact that they could do that, yeah.
And the long ships were so light that the crew could even lift them over land to get to another body of water. Wow. So a big ship that could hold that many guys to go raiding could also be picked up, taken over a hill to like the next river or whatever. So that's kind of some of the cool things about the long ships. They're big technological advantage. I mentioned that they were more democratic than you might think. They held those big assemblies called things where free men, let's be clear on democratic. Free men were allowed to go and decide court cases and decide legislation for the whole island. There's a lot of talk about how Viking women had equality, and then everything I read said that's a little overblown. They
more equality than was normal in the time and place, but
right.
Not quite.
So,
yeah.
Not quite. We're still in the Middle Ages. So, but they did find graves of Viking women who have an incredible amount of riches around them. So they were respected and they were thought of as elites in many ways, some of them, but they didn't quite have all of the rights that men had in some cases. They were great at hygiene and very particular about their appearance. Archaeological digs have found combs, razors, tweezers, nose hair pluckers, and all the evidence shows that they bathed regularly. More regularly. I've had 3 shots before I started today. More regularly than like the Franks, who were, at the same time living down in France and Germany. The Vikings had more bathing time. So now let's talk about Lindisfarne. Okay, so Lindisfarne.
I don't know what this is.
Yeah, Lindisfarne is what kicks off the Age of Vikings, according to many historians. It's Lindisfarne was an island and an abbey that existed in the 700s. It was a famous abbey because there were saints that had administered there.
Saint Aidan and Saint Cuthbert were both buried there.
Cuthbert. Yes, they were buried there, and the Vikings came down to Lindisfarne on June 8th, 793, and they pillaged the entire abbey, and they set it to the torch, and they killed people.
So they weren't afraid of God.
What's that?
They weren't afraid of their God. Of this.
No, they weren't Christian.
They were pagan.
Yeah. Like they didn't give a shit. Yeah.
Yeah, the great heathen army one day would
But there's all this cool stuff. There's this thing called the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle that talks about when Lindisfarne happened. And it says all this cool stuff like before the Vikings arrived, there was strange lightning in the sky. And there was a famine that preceded their coming. And dragons were seen flying through the air for months before. So I mean,
I think we need I survived Lindisfarne.
Yeah, we do.
It's about as reliable, that account. But it was also like it was written like many years after the fact, and really far distant. Like I think it was Alcuin of York wrote it, and he was a clerk in Charlemagne's court, like in Holy Roman Empire. So far removed from it, and certainly had an agenda. But yeah.
Right. And to be clear, Lindisfarne, they couldn't put up a fight at all. It was like a bunch of monks who had absolutely no combat skills, and they had all this gold and valuable stuff in this building, and they just kind of got slaughtered because they weren't ready for an armed group to come marching in. But in general, the Vikings, they did not kill if they did not have to, and in fact, once they'd established a reputation of being formidable and scary, fearsome foes, they then moved to like more of an extortion racket instead.
Yeah.
And they would sail to your coast. Yeah, they would sail to your coast and they would send someone out and they'd go like, look, I mean, we can raid you. I can bring all my men ashore and we can start stabbing everybody. Or you can just give me
a
ton of grain and gold right now. Yeah, just pay the fine.
Yeah.
And people did it.
Wow. That's like...
People did it.
That's like organized crime, right?
That's exactly what it was.
I mean, racketeering, right? Like early era racketeering.
Yeah, they demanded the Bear Guild. That's like a tax, and like you could buy them off.
Kill you, to not burn your business to the ground.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and like so
nice
many
monastery
people
you have here, it'd be a shame if something happened to it. Like that's what it was.
And like a lot of people that started out in organized crime, they kind of eventually sort of started to go straight. They ultimately, I think, landed more in doing farming, and trade was huge with them since they were so far traveled. And people don't know that like they set up a sort of entrepot, a trading post at Dublin, when Dublin was nothing but a tiny village. And because of the Vikings, Dublin became the city of Dublin because they traded there and had that as kind of a station for their journeys and their trading. So
I've never done any of the genetic stuff, the 23andMe or anything like that. I never have, but I always assume that I've got some Viking blood.
Oh, of course,
through the Irish side, because I'm Irish, but I'm also that like pale-skinned, light-haired, red-bearded Irish. I'm like that. It must be where I come from.
Yeah.
You know, those Dubliners. That version.
You and me both, buddy, on both sides.
Yeah.
Yep.
I probably have a really tough Viking in my history too.
Yeah, he was such a badass, and he had a cool sword.
My 23andMe comes back Viking warrior. 99%.
Viking warrior. That would be amazing if it said that.
They should be. Someone should make a version of 23andMe that's like that. Viking warrior.
I mean, that's all the whole past lives of people like obsessed with past lives. That's the same thing. It's just like, I was Marie Antoinette in a past life. It's like, no, you weren't. Past lives do exist. You were not Marie Antoinette. I guarantee. You weren't famous.
I got my 23andMe back. It says 33% ninja master.
You're right. This is a business idea. We just got to sell this online.
People would totally go for it. Are you kidding?
Hell yeah.
Like any scam. So to finish up with our friends, the Vikings, they weren't colonizers, but in England, they established an area they controlled for many years called the Danelaw. And there, the Britain and Scandinavian cultures mixed together. And so a lot of people in England are also sort of descended from the Viking raiders for that reason. And they kind of controlled a section of England for many years. And if you want to read a cool story about that, or a couple cool stories about the Vikings, I recommend a comic book by Brian Wood called Northlanders. And Northlanders was a Vertigo comic book from the 2000s, which is just realistic action mystery stories about Vikings. And one of them is sort of a detective tale set in the Danelaw, like where a Viking has to figure out these English that are doing like guerrilla raids against his people.
Oh, that's cool.
So,
cool.
Very cool stuff. And the last thing I wanted to mention was the Blood Eagle. Do you know what a Blood Eagle is?
I don't. Skid knows.
I do.
So there are a couple instances of in recordings by the Norse, by the Vikings, and also by Christian people who say that Vikings sometimes punished people using a blood eagle. That is where they would put someone down on their belly, and then they would open their back and pull the ribs out, like so that they were sticking out, and then reach in and get their lungs and pull their lungs out their back to look like wings. And that was called a blood eagle.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Supposedly, this was how King Ella of Northumbria was executed by the sons of Ragnar Lothbrok in revenge for King Ella tossing Ragnar into a pit of snakes and killing him that way. I don't think that's true. I think King Ella was actually killed in battle. But that was the big example cited by most people about the Blood Eagle was King Ella.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to leave everybody with the Blood Eagle.
Wow, good, strong ending. Nailed the landing. I'm seeing a couple Blood Eagle mentions in Twitch chat in pop culture. So Blood Eagle was in Midsommar, which I never saw that movie because I heard it was so fucked up.
Oh yeah.
Yes. And then somebody else, Inky Z says it's in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. There's a quest with a Blood Eagle in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. So yeah, apparently people know about this. So thanks for bringing it to our attention, Jared.
It's a thing. That's Blood Eagle. It's a thing.
Someone also mentions speaking of anime, the Vinland Saga, which is on Netflix, which takes place and it's it's heavily fictionalized version of a lot of this stuff, but it's great. It is a phenomenal series. Like I really love it. So.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Jared, thanks for the work. That was awesome.
Yeah, good job.
Thank
you,
Skid.
I had no idea that there were Vikings in Iran. That's amazing.
That's one of the ways that they would identify hordes. These like hordes that they would bury as Vikings, because they would have all this like Muslim minted silver. Like they were the ones that would bring it back. So
McDermott's response to the Blood Eagle is "Go Birds." World champions.
Randall Cunningham, the original Blood Eagle.
The original Blood Eagle, Randall Cunningham. All right, Jared, let's wrap it up today. We got to get out of here. Let's wrap it up with a book club announcement.
Yes, we're going to announce the book club book.
We've chosen the next book.
Pay close attention.
And post it far and wide so that no one has to ask Jared what it is. He doesn't want to be asked.
I'm going to answer every post when people in a demanding and feverish way add 3 question marks to what is the book? I'll be sure to post in response. Listen, Joe, before we tell the book, when is it due? When do you have to have the book read?
You have to have the book read. Let's look ahead here. Let's say July. I got all of a sudden Southern gentleman. How about July 16th? Wednesday, July 16th. That gives you about
more
6 weeks, 5 to 6 weeks to read the book. I know it's a busy time for everybody with the, we got 4th of July coming up and summer gets started. People get busy. I get it. Let's give it 5 to 6 weeks. Is that all right with you?
That works for me. That's beautiful.
Can't read a book in a month. What are you, Einstein?
I know, right?
What are you, Einstein? I know some of these people are going to be posting about this next week and just being like, finished.
I'm going to say the name of the book in a minute. And then in 4 minutes, someone's going to go, just finished it. Read everything else by this author.
One more tease before you say the book. This book has been around for a little while. It is popular, very popular. And I've never read it. Jared has never read it. Skid, I don't know if you've read it. But already we've got a special guest lined up to join us for talking about this book. One, Kate Stamos is a fan of this particular book and is going to join us. So hopefully I got to check her availability on July 16th, but she was like, I'm in, can't wait to talk about it. And lastly but not leastly, I hear that this book also has a phenomenal audiobook, which is something that our last selection struggled with, it seemed a little bit.
I'm going to get the audiobook right now as you're talking about it.
Please, Jared.
All right.
Drum roll, please.
So the answer is, it is the first volume of A Court of Thorn and Roses.
I was misled.
Hey guys, I'm serious.
I was misled.
Go ahead and say it's A Court of Thorn and Roses, book 1. Now log off the show and go read it.
Go read it. We'll see you in a month.
It's not. We thought we'd done some fantasy now. We thought it was time to do some science fiction, and maybe science fiction a little on the hardish science fiction side. So we will be reading Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, the author of The Martian. We hear that there is a movie coming out for this novel. I think that's true. So perhaps we could even revisit it later when the movie comes out. In particular, I wanted to read this because my dad read it and gave me the book a while ago, a couple months ago. And I thought, well, it'd be great if I could read this and talk to my dad about it. That's assuming he remembers it. He often tends to forget things that happened a couple months ago.
I read The Martian. I loved it. And my wife and I, The Martian is our number one movie in the list of movies that we ask people if they just want to watch a movie. We're like, have you seen The Martian? Because if they haven't, it's such an easy and fun watch.
It's a great movie. I love that movie so much.
With anybody that's hanging out, visiting, and wants to take in a flick. You're like, have you seen The Martian? That's our number one. I love it. And so I've always stayed away from Project Hail Mary because I have this disease. It's the fear of when the first book is amazing, everything else is going to suck by that author. I'm always so afraid that it's going to be a disappointment. But I'm going to try to keep an open mind and dive into this. And I'm looking forward to doing a sci-fi for our book club.
I haven't read anything by Andy Weir, but I read the first couple pages of this and I was immediately hooked. So
great.
I think this is going to be great.
Big Sharky says, crap, I missed it. What's the book? In Discord chat.
The book is A Court of Thorn and Roses,
Sharky.
2015.
Book 1.
Get on it.
Wait, let me look at what the name of it is. A Court of Thorn and Roses.
Yes, the objective is to read the whole... Clancy answered A Court of Thorn and Roses. I mean, amazing.
2015. By Sarah J. Maas.
The goal is to read Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir by July 16th, and we'll do a full convo on the whole book at that time. And hopefully we'll have Kate Stamos with us for that. So that is going to wrap it up for us today. Thank you guys so much for hanging out.
Thanks, Skid.
Thank you.
Dude, Skid, thank you so much for joining the show. It was awesome. Tune in to see Jared and Skid playing Chaosium's Age of Vikings next Wednesday, June 11th at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. There will be no Glass Cannon Radio next week. Don't panic. We'll be back on June 18th. We're going to be in Vegas next week. So we're looking forward to that retreat. Baby. If you're coming to Vegas, can't wait to see you there. Going to have lots of gaming, lots of fun happening. But that's why there'll be no Glass Cannon Radio next week. But tune into Age of Vikings premiering 8 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. And then part 2 will be June 18th, which is the same date that we'll be back with more Glass Cannon Radio. Until then, take it easy, everybody. Have a great week and weekend, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Take it easy. Thanks,
Later.
Guys. Bye.